Good morning to you. I'm Danilo Evangelista. Welcome to our tropical weather outlook video for Thursday today, June 19th, 2025. Let's start off talking about Erick because it is now inland over Mexico. It made landfall as a major hurricane about 2 or so hours ago. So now it's on a downtrend, but the flooding threat still remains over Mexico. I'll go over that in a moment, but let's start off with a satellite imagery of Erick. You can see it is now inland over Mexico, and it is probably going to die off pretty quickly here over the next several hours as it moves in over the very mountainous terrain of Mexico. But you can still see lots of convective activity just off the coast, and the storm itself, for the most part, is still off the coast of Mexico. Just the center has now moved inland. But as you could also see, lots of cloud cover surrounding Erick, so lots of flooding that'll be around Erick. It's not going to just be, of course, a major hurricane that crosses the coast that brings major hurricane force winds to only a small area. There will be lots of flooding over a large chunk of Mexico, and that'll be the continuous threat over the next several days. But in terms of this being a major storm, and at least in terms of its intensity, it is going to die out pretty quickly. In fact, the National Hurricane Center expects by tomorrow morning this will completely die out. The terrain over Mexico, for the most part, especially here over southeastern Mexico, is very mountainous, and storms that move into this area tend to die out very quickly. But once again, the rainfall will be a huge threat, and it'll be something that lasts for at least the next few days. Large chunks of the state of Guerrero and Oaxaca still will see up to 6 to 8 inches of rain on top of the probably over a foot of rain that many places in southeastern Mexico have received already. And in fact, the rainfall extends for a large chunk of the coast as well, even extending past the state of Guerrero and even into Michoacan de Ocampo. And as I always say, the rainfall is always the biggest threat when it comes to these tropical cyclones. Erick made landfall on one point on the map, but the influence of weather surrounding Erick will be widespread, and obviously the biggest impact from that will be the rainfall. So keep in mind, if you are in portions of Mexico, even if you are not in the center or you did not experience the center of Erick, you're still probably going to experience heavy rain. And heavy rain is the number one killer when it comes to tropical cyclones, especially over terrain like Mexico. It can lead to mudslides, and mudslides are very deadly. So keep in mind with that with Erick. But it is now moving inland, and it'll probably die out very quickly over the next several hours, today or so. Moving on from Erick, though, the East Pack, I said this before, but the East Pack is going to continue to remain active. It seems like well into June now, or we are already well into June, but probably till the end of the month, the East Pack is going to remain active. The National Hurricane Center now highlighting a new area of interest just off the southeastern coast of Mexico. Luckily, though, from the model guidance that I've seen, is this is going to stay out to sea and track offshore of Mexico, so no need to worry about any new tropical impacts beyond Erick. But a low chance of development right now over the next week offshore of Central America. An area of low pressure is forecast to develop early next week. Off the coast of Central America, environmental conditions appear conducive for some gradual development. After that time, as the system moves west-northwestward off the coasts of central and southern Mexico, so you probably won't have to worry about any tropical impacts after Erick is done with in the coming week. But looks like we will get more development here in the Pacific very shortly. In fact, I wanted to show you, if I could find it, I think this is it. This is the European ensembles for the next 10 days in the Pacific, and you could see the activity just continues. especially as we head into next week. Look at how many of these low pressures appear on the European ensembles, meaning activity, or at least the Pacific Basin as a whole, will stay active pretty much all the way till the end of the month, because this graphic goes out to the 29th. So before the month is over, we're probably going to squeak out another named storm or two in the Pacific. And we'll see if it is any threat to the Mexican coastline. Hopefully not, but obviously nothing is for sure right now. But the Eastern Pacific is going to stay active. We could even see that on the GFS model. Heading out towards the next week, you could already see here off the coast of Central America something else developing, and then we'll obviously see if this tracks west-northwestward or this gets close to the Mexican coastline and maybe becomes another threat. It's hurricane season, so obviously do not let your guard down, especially if you were impacted by Erick. You definitely won't want to keep your guard down. But the Eastern Pacific is probably going to stay active, and the Atlantic over the next week, on the other hand, really quickly, waiting for the GFS to load. There we go. Let's take the GFS out towards the next week in the Atlantic. Literally nothing. The Atlantic is going to stay quiet for the foreseeable future, and we might even go this entire month of June without getting a single named storm. We might have to wait till next month, July, before we get our first named storm in the Atlantic. It is starting to shape out that way, and it's not totally unprecedented that it's never happened before. It has happened in years past. And obviously that does not say that the Atlantic season as a whole will not be active, because anyways, most of our activity in the Atlantic tends to happen once we get into August. But at least in terms of Atlantic concerns, it's probably going to stay very quiet over the next week or so to 10 days, and that pretty much takes us out till the end of the month. So just throwing it out there right now, it probably looks increasingly likely that we will not get a named storm in the Atlantic till the end of the month. In fact, probably not till next month at this point. All of the activity remains in the Eastern Pacific for now. And climatologically speaking, at least for the last third of June, you notice where we tend to get a lot of development, and this is climatologically speaking, at least in terms of development that we've seen in past years, at least up till 2023, we tend to have a lot higher concentration of development in the Pacific. So it's more expected that activity will be more concentrated in the Eastern Pacific for now. We still have a few development points, though, in the Atlantic, namely the Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico and off the southeast coast, which, as I say, are the typically favored areas this time of year in June. Although late June in past years, especially active years, we have gotten development out in the Eastern Atlantic, but it's not very typical. Climatologically speaking, we tend to favor, once again, mostly the Caribbean and Gulf. And as I just showed you with the GFS, those areas remain quiet over the next several days. Looks like the Eastern Pacific is going to be the place where the activity will remain, at least for the foreseeable future. And obviously, interests along Mexico need to watch closely, not because there is a impending threat, but obviously because you guys are just still dealing with Erick, and it'll continue to move inland and die out. But obviously, it was a pretty devastating storm, and the Eastern Pacific will remain active. So we'll have to see if there are any more threats to Mexico coming over the next week to 10 days. But for now, not much happening at the moment, but at least in the near-term future, Eastern Pacific is going to remain active while the Atlantic still remains quiet. With that being said, I'm going to end it off for today's tropical weather video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you are along Mexico and you are dealing with the impacts of Erick, I'm praying for your safety, hoping everybody is well, and hopefully the recovery process along the coast is speedy and quick, especially, and hopefully nothing else happens, especially if you're along southeastern Mexico. They've gotten battered a lot, especially over the last 2 years, with Otis and then John and now Erick. and hopefully nothing else is coming for them in the foreseeable future. Thanks for watching today's video. If you like what you saw today, please like, comment, and subscribe, especially if you want more videos like this. I upload every single day, so obviously we'll be back tomorrow with another video discussion. So enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe. Peace, love, and kindness to you all. I will be back tomorrow with another video.